adventure, sports, outdoors. With host Harry Canterbury.
There I was, back in the wild again, and I felt right at home where I belong. I had that feeling coming over me again, just like it happened so many times before. Yeah.
Hi, Harry Canterbury with another edition of Adventure Sports Outdoors. Join us today as we go back in history, not too many years ago, the Vietnam War. Randy Prunty, a war hero, a guy who went through some thick and thin in Vietnam, is going to tell us about his experiences on a PBR. That is a patrol boat river. It's a small boat about 30 feet long and patrolled the Delta, the Mekong Delta, and many other parts of Vietnam. He saw a lot of action, saw a lot of friends die, and he's going to tell us about some of his experiences that happened back then. So stay tuned today for a good show.
Adventure Sports Outdoors, brought to you in part by Corsaw Lumber, manufacturers of quality hardwood products, buyers of standing timber in Smithfield. Central Pool Supply, everything from pools to pool tables and much more in Peoria on West Pioneer Parkway. Michael O'Brien Commercial Real Estate and Recreational Ground, Remax Unlimited Commercial. Kelleher's Irish Pub and Eatery, located on Peoria's riverfront, open 11 a.m. daily. And by Allwyn & Sons Meat Company. Our thanks to all of these sponsors. The following is a historical account of the Vietnam War, with details that some viewers may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
We're here with Randy Prunty from Germantown Hills, right here in central Illinois. And during the 60s and 70s, a lot of guys his age went to a strange place, a place when you went there sometimes you didn't come back, and that was Vietnam. Randy went into the service in 1966, and we're going to talk about his experiences as a gunner's mate, petty officer on what they call a PBR boat. That's a patrol boat river, I guess is what it stands for. Yeah. But I want to welcome Randy to the show. Tell everybody what a PBR was. I've read up on the boats. 32 foot long. They made two models, a Mark I and Mark II.
32. I served only on the Mark IIs. I got there in May 1969, and Mark II was the only. I was in River Division 553, and Mark IIs are all we had at that time. The Mark Is were being phased out. Mark II was a little bit faster, a little bit more, had a gun rail around it, so you could take bumping on the side a little bit better. Had the gun tub set lower. It was just a all-around better boat.
It was a jet boat.
They were jacuzzi jet pumps. They could literally go from a 3-foot draft to an 8-inch draft and up to 35 knots. You could literally water ski behind a PBR.
I was reading a story where guys, did it.
Yes, we actually created our own water skis.
Oh, you did it yourself?
And did it ourselves. It was done. I wish I had pictures of that, but probably better that I don't.
Randy, we've got a model of the exact boat that you were on, a 32-foot long, 10 feet wide, jacuzzi jet motor in the back. Tell us a little bit about the boat, how fast it would go, and how many guys were on it, and what kind of armament did you have?
All right, okay, this is a very accurate model done by a semi-professional model builder who happened to be a relative of mine. But this is a Mark II PBR. My position was a forward gunner. I sat between 250 caliber machine guns on the front of the boat, and that was the main armament. Would be the big guns on the boat, twin 50s. Gunner's mate always was in that position. Aft, we had a single 50 caliber machine gun, and that was usually a seaman position, one of the youngest and lowest ranked guys on the ship. Midship was always your engineman, the guy that would actually, we happened to have one of the best enginemans around, a big farmer kid from Michigan. We had two 6-cylinder General Motor diesel engines and two jacuzzi pumps out the back. The boat captains sat in really only the best armored position of the whole boat. He had armor plate literally all the way around the coxswain flat where he actually controlled the boat from. There were two metal plates in between on top of the engine covers where the engineman, because your most important guy on the ship was the guy that's going to drive the boat and get you out of harm's way. And then the second most important guy was your engineman that's going to keep the engines running to get you out. The two gunners had a metal plate in front of the aft gun, and then I had two half-inch metal plates that set in between my two twin 50s up forward. And then my gun tub itself had a little bit of armor around it, but I literally had rounds. Being a fiberglass boat, you can shoot a .22 all the way through the boat. There was every patrol was a 12-hour patrol. You'd either go from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night, or 6 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning. And I have many times where we did double patrols. In fact, I have one instance where for 3 days we were awake because we had to escort some South Vietnamese junks. But every day was different. A day patrol consisted of going down canals and stopping whatever river traffic was there, sampans, and checking IDs of the merchants, of the farmer, why they were out there, and if they had the proper paperwork to be there. Nighttime, you don't drive up and down canals at night without getting shot. Nighttime, we would go out on patrol right before 6. The patrol officer would have a brown paper envelope that only he knew the location where we were going. He'd pull that out, and we would, at a certain spot, we would nose into a bank. Your lead boat on one bank and your cover boat on the other side. And from 6 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning, you just sat there all night long. That meant taking an M60 out into the jungle and 25 to 50 yards away and literally laying there all night.
Right out in front of the boat, in the reeds.
Yeah. And usually when you did that, though, you couldn't see me. I was in thick jungle. If we had an area that had elephant grass or we had pretty good vision, there was no need for that. But if it was real thick jungle, I couldn't see the boat, and the boat couldn't see me, but I was going to be the buffer, the guy that went out there and sat in the dark all night long. And I did that enough times that...
You know, when you're in combat and when you're with people for a long time, and you're backing them up and they're backing you up. So you know, and you're on a small boat. I mean, these are not large boats. It's not much bigger than it's about the same size as my boat I go boating in.
Yeah.
So it's a small boat, so you get to be, really close to these people.
Yeah.
You had a lot of good friends, and a lot of them didn't come back. But you bond with these guys because they're going to take care of you and you're going to take care of them. And you were like 20 years old, but most of these guys were 18, 19, they're kids.
Yeah.
You were just a kid.
Well, see, and another thing, on a PBR, we always had one South Vietnamese Navy sailor with us, and the South Vietnamese Navy sailors were actually very, very good at combat. I happened to have one, his name was Nguyen Van Ha. And Ha, he never wanted to be an American, he wanted to be free. He knew why we were there, and that's one thing that people don't realize, that a lot of troops got to work with the South Vietnamese that knew what freedom was and knew why we were there. Nguyen Van Ha, when I'd be in the middle of a firefight, a lot of times he was up on the bow with me. He'd be laying right. I would literally swing my guns around, and I'd have to reach down and grab him to pull his ass back because he can't get underneath of the 250 caliber machine guns because the concussion would do serious damage if not kill him.
And here's a picture of him
He
right
was
here.
he was a great fighter.
Yeah, here's a picture of him, and he became a close friend of yours then.
Yep, yep.
I'm Dave Barth with your Sportsman's Tip of the Week. We've talked in the past about concealed carry handguns and self-defense handguns, but we have not talked about shotguns. A shotgun for home or for backpacking is hard to beat. You just can't hardly miss. If you're in bear country, a shotgun loaded with buckshot or slugs or something like that would be just a really good self-defense gun to have. We have a few examples of shotguns that would make a good choice for home defense. The first one here is a Mossberg. It has a collapsible stock. It's a 5-shot, 2 3/4 or 3-inch. It has a shell holder on the buttstock, and it's a pump shotgun. Pistol grip, pump shotgun. The next one in line is a Stevens. It has ghost ring sights, pistol grip, and it's also a pump. Shoots 2 3/4 or 3-inch. It's a 5-shot magazine. If you want a semi-automatic, there's many choices. This is a Benelli. It's a 12-gauge 3-inch with a Picatinny rail and ghost ring sights. And here at the other end, we have a pistol grip shotgun. It's a pump. It's got false muzzle brake here, and it's also a 5-shot, 2 3/4 or 3-inch. The last gun in line here is a Remington 870 Tactical. It has an 8-shot magazine, a Picatinny rail so you can mount optics on it, open sights, a ghost ring sight, and any of these would be a good choice. One accessory you would really want to put on any of these would be a sling. I'm Dave Barth with your Sportsman's Tip of the Week.
Hello, I'm Dr. Art Herm at the Morton Animal Hospital. I've been in practice for over 40 years here at the Morton Animal Hospital in Morton, Illinois. As a rabies control administrator in Tazewell County, it is imperative that I emphasize that everyone have their dogs vaccinated for rabies. From Ladybug and all our friends here at the Morton Animal Hospital, we wish you happy trails, and we'll see you next time.
What a fascinating interview it's been so far. And now we're going to go back to Randy Prunty and talk about some more of his experiences in Vietnam. Say, we're going to talk about one of the firefights, one that means an awful lot to you. You were given well, you were up for the Silver Star, but you told the officer that a lot of things, but you still ended up with a great commendation here, the Navy Commendation Medal, and
5 times.
5 times. And I'm going to read this if I can. For heroic achievement while serving with friendly foreign forces engaged in armed conflict against the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong communist aggressors in the Republic of Vietnam. On September the 17th of 1969, Petty Officer Prunty was serving as gunner on board a river patrol boat set in waterborne guard post on the Tri Ton Canal. Suddenly a group of Viet Cong were detected approaching on the west bank of the canal. Executing extreme fire control discipline, he allowed the enemy to walk into predetermined crossfire position. At that exact moment, he opened fire and cut down the enemy immediately. Realizing that the enemy group had been making a resupply attempt, he volunteered to conduct a search in the area for supplies and weapons, and under the constant threat of enemy attack, he repeatedly dove along the banks of the canal and brought up valuable supplies of ammunition. As a result of his actions, 3 sampans, 30,000 rounds of ammunition and 30 mortar rounds, 5 automatic rifles and 1 carbine, 10 rockets, 2 hand grenades, and numerous papers and articles of clothing were captured. His decisive action and bravery were instrumental in dealing with the enemy of a devastating blow. Petty Officer Prunty's professionalism, courage, and devotion to the duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. And the combat distinguishing device is combat authorized. Yeah, there's the rifle there. Tell us about that.
You want to hear the real story now?
Yeah, let's hear the real story.
Okay, that was the bull medals paper that I got the medal with. On the night before that, on November the 16th, the night before, we had 2 PBRs go out on a patrol. And one of the guys on the boat was my best friend who wasn't even supposed to be on the boat. We'd spent 9 days in the jungle. And after 9 days in the jungle, you came back to an LST to get a hot meal and a shower. And we had 2 boats going out to take our place, and one of the boats had a guy, and their engineman said he wasn't feeling well for whatever reason, wasn't able to make that patrol, and my good friend Bob Cushmall went out in his place that night. And that's always a red flag, a bad feeling when somebody does something. And what we do, 9 days in the jungle is enough in the jungle. To go back out again, extend that for a day or 2. They said it was just going to be one night and he'd be back in the next day. But you get a bad feeling in your stomach. And that night on the LST, I went up to the con tower, the radio tower, and just listened to radio talk while the 2 boats were out there setting ambush. And I heard them talk that they had seen something, and then one of the boats decided they were going to fire on a position. And as soon as they did that, what apparently happened, and we found out later, that once they give, the Viet Cong never know where we are. The boats disappear in the dark. They just literally disappear. You couldn't see your cover boat on the other side of the bank. But once you give your position away, you've done that. You are now exposed. And what they did, they were decoyed, and they had a fairly new patrol officer. And when they shot at what they thought was a target, all that was a decoy, and they gave their position away. And a preset ambush by the Viet Cong decimated both boats. They killed 3 people on the 2 boats, 2 Americans, my good friend Bob Cushmall, Larry Holloway, a brand new gunner's mate they had on the boat, and one of their South Vietnamese Navy guys on the boat. And both boats were shot up so bad. Even the boat captain was shot up so bad, but he managed to get the boat started. Because as soon as we heard the firefight, they sent 2 Navy helicopters, Seawolves, in to help them out. And we sent about 5 boats in to do what we could. But by the time we got there, the firefight was over. I remember loading, my good friend was literally blown in half. I put his upper half in the helicopter, and one of his arms with a B-40 rocket had cut him in half. And other pieces, and we stayed in the jungle to set ambush the next night. Now the next night we went down to the opposite canal, which was called Juliet Canal. On this night we stayed in the jungle, and we had a pretty good idea of where the bad guys were, and they were trying to get back to Cambodia. And about 1 o'clock that night, and I could see, I could see 3 bodies real clear, standing up in a sampan coming right straight at me. Turned around and notified my boat captain behind me that I had 3 bogeys, and he alerted everybody else to set up a true firefight. You crisscross so nobody shoots at the target, because that's how you get ambushed. And as soon as I started to fire, with the flashes of my .50 calibers, I could see that there were 5, 6, and turned out to be 7 people in these 2 sampans. And the return fire from 7 people with AKs and other weapons was pretty good, but 2 twin .50 caliber machine guns, the firefight lasted about 2 to 3 minutes, and everything was done, everything was dark. I went out to the spot where the bodies were, grabbed the first couple bodies, dove in the water, and by the time I got done, I had 7 bodies laying out on the canal. And then, like the medal said, commendation said, I started pulling out the rounds of ammunition, and there's 1 carbine mentioned in that commendation. And that 1 carbine is this one right here, mentioned right in the Mas and Nagant, Chinese made, and it came from that particular ambush and documented that I brought it back with me. There's another story on bringing that back, but that's another story. But once I got everything that I could out, I remember diving in the water, and I'm down in this canal still pulling stuff out, and the flares are popped, and this is a canal where 7 bodies have bled out. And the water's it's surreal. It's like jello. I remember looking up because the water was about a foot or 2 over my head because I was still bringing a few things up. And about this time, one of my good seaman on the boat, Mike Hinton, came out to see how I was doing. He said, "You okay, Prunty?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he took a look at what all was there, and picked up one little piece that was laying on the bank. And it turned out that one of the .50 caliber rounds that had hit one of the Kong right in the head and just literally emptied out his brain cavity. It was just amazingly smooth, just clear. And that dark hair was just a flap of skin, a little bit attached, and a little piece of bone came off that flap of skin. And he picked up the flap of skin and tossed it at me. He goes, here's your medal, Prunty. And I just caught it and stuck it in my pocket. And it literally stayed in my pocket for 2 or 3 days. And once I got back, I took all my bloody clothes off and wadded them up and threw them in the bottom of the boat. And 2 or 3 days later, I washed them myself with a bucket in the boat. And I found that little piece of bone. I ended up putting a little hole in it and put it on my dog tag. And then at that time in Vietnam, I used to put peace signs on all my articles of clothing. But somebody suggested that since they knew I liked the peace sign, it's 1969. So I ended up carving a peace sign out of that piece of bone. And that's it. And that literally, you know, guys come back with all kinds of issues, and most people don't remember what medals anybody got, but over the years I've had friends call me, and if they say, "Have you still got the peace sign?" then I know there's somebody that I know and somebody that knows me. And it's helped me in so many different ways. I can't even begin to. I mean, and there's a warrior involved in this too. There's a respect. I only wear it around my neck on Veterans Day, on Memorial Day, and on November 17th. I wear it, and there's a certain amount of respect given there for that exchange of life. But that particular night, somebody was going to die. Somebody did.
And they did. You know, this looks like a coal miner's flashlight. I think it's probably Chinese made, but there's a story behind this light, isn't there?
Well, I had been in Vietnam about 2 months, and down the canal came these voices laughing, talking, and this little flickering light, and they were coming right down. Turned out there were 2 guys walking down the canal, and through the starlight scope you could see the AKs sticking up. They were walking, just carrying their flashlight down, following this path right along the canal bank. And but they got closer and closer, and I looked back at my boat captain again, and he just let me, you know, whenever, because they were coming right straight at the bow of my boat, he let it be up to me to fire the first shot. So I let them get as closer than I probably would like to. They got within 10 yards of the boat. They were shining it down as they were talking. If they'd have raised it up, we were 10 yards from them. They would have shined right on us. And this is the light that they were carrying. And I let them get before I actually started to shoot. I let them get within 5 yards of the boat.
And there's a flag here. What's this, Randy?
All right, that flag.
Oh, this thing
that
here
is the Republic of South Vietnam.
This thing's it's been through. It's got bullet holes in it.
But that flag was on a sampan that made the mistake of shooting at a PBR and then trying to outrun us. And there's a number of 50 caliber holes in that flag, as you don't outrun a 50 caliber machine gun.
Those are.
But
50.
those were our friends. That was South Vietnam, but they weren't South Vietnamese that were in the sampan. The American flag. This is my last patrol flag off my last PBR in Vietnam. Means a great deal to me. That is a true battle flag right there. I managed to get wonderful things in this little bag that I had from Vietnam. Ambush memorabilia. I've got my actual jungle boots that I wore in Vietnam on the PBR with the peace sign on them. I've got this is my actual helmet liner. The helmet's not mine, but the liner is mine with the peace sign right on it.
Randy, tell us about your friend. Every year you go to this event in Chelsea, Michigan, which is really not too far from here, about a 3-hour drive, I guess, something like that.
Well, I'm from Metamora, Illinois. I grew up in a small farm community, and when I got to Chow Duck, Vietnam, one of the first people I met was Robert Cushmal Jr. from Chelsea, Michigan, a small farm town in Michigan, and he and I just had an instant bond, being small town farm boys that knew about hunting, and Bob and I became best friends. Had a common bond with everything. And when after Bob got killed and I came back home, actually it was my son that got in contact with the Cushmal family. And I ended up going up to Chelsea, Michigan to meet the family. And since 1979, I've gone on Memorial Day. Every year I go to Chelsea, Michigan on Memorial Day to visit Bob Cushmal's cemetery, Oak Run Cemetery in Chelsea, Michigan. And I have in 1998, I went up to Chelsea, Michigan to visit with Maxine Cushmal, I've been going there since 1980, and Bob's mother, and she gave me a cassette recording. And the cassette recording had Bob talking on tape. I know he had this little recorder with a microphone that he'd talk in and tell things in like a cassette letter and send them home. He talks on the tape and you hear the sounds of the minigun, and he talks about me. It was just an absolutely amazing. I transferred it to CD. It's wonderful and at the same time
Painful.
Painful and
Well, I want to thank you for coming over and sharing your feelings and bearing your heart. I really appreciate it. And you know, Bob's gone, and he was a good friend, and he's sadly missed by you and his family. But his memory goes on because of you. And let's have a toast to Bob.
Oh, let's have a toast to Bob.
Yep. Here's to Bob.
To Bob and everyone else out there that needs a toast to keep the memory alive.
Well, folks, let's have a tape for anybody that wants to listen to it. This is Bob, just in case you wonder who's doing it. Inside, I'm going to do for Judy. Well, today I went out and spent a little money, splurged a little lot, bought me a tape recorder. Think I can use it. Been wanting one anyway.
Oh, I do like the morning. I get my cookies on Tuesday. That recorder going on? That's fun. I finally got it out. These guys give me a little slack. We're going back to I'm getting water. Yeah. You need the goddamn hands first. One out here on the top leg. It never fucking goes like this. Damn it, nobody did. I'm not fucking there. Hey. Jesus Christ. You know what really works? A white box, are you sure, man?
Adventure Sports Outdoors, brought to you in part by Corsaw Lumber, manufacturers of quality hardwood products, buyers of standing timber in Smithfield. Central Pool Supply, everything from pools to pool tables and much more in Peoria on West Pioneer Parkway.
Michael O'Brien Commercial Real Estate and Recreational Ground, Remax Unlimited Commercial.
Kelleher's Irish Pub and Eatery, located on Peoria's riverfront, open 11 a.m. daily. And by Allwyn & Sons Meat Company. Our thanks to all of these sponsors.